The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
And good morning to you. Just past 5 a.m. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher.
And it was another violent weekend in Kern County. One person is in the hospital after they were shot Saturday night in South Bakersfield. That stemmed from a fight during an apparent car rally. Bakersfield police officers were called to the former Sears outlet parking lot at White Lane and Hughes Lane. When they arrived, they found a man who had been shot. Emergency crews rushed him to the hospital, where his condition is described as critical. Another man was also shot and taken to the hospital, but later released. Police say a fight broke out involving several people before the shooting. Witnesses say they saw two men firing guns. No arrests have been made.
State lawmakers, meantime, are taking aim at a surge of street racing and illegal sideshows. This comes just days after a suspected street racer crashed on Panama Lane in southwest Bakersfield, killing 19-year-old Bianca Flores. 17's Moses Small reports.
Earlier this week, suspected street racer Iqbal Singh lost control of his Mustang racing against a motorcycle on Panama Lane. Singh swerved into oncoming traffic, slamming into a car driven by 19-year-old Bianca Flores. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Flores' relatives say they're still reeling.
We're never going to get to see her go walk down the aisle, have children of her own. We feel very robbed by this tragedy, this senseless tragedy that could have easily been avoided.
Flores was about to turn 20.
Her birthday is March 31st, and so we were starting to make plans for her birthday. And now, instead of planning for a trip, here we are planning for, her vigil, her funeral. We should be looking forward to more important milestones.
A family robbed of a young life, still searching for answers.
The motorcyclist that was part of the race hasn't come forward. Somebody knows who that is. The family wants justice. There's nothing that's going to bring Bianca back.
First responders say dangerous driving is out of control across the state. The California Highway Patrol says it responded to more than 25,000 calls involving illegal street racing last year, a sizable jump from 2020. Assemblyman Vince Fong says reckless driving shows no signs of slowing down, and it could be even more dangerous now that the economy is back open and Californians are back on the roads.
And so now we're seeing, no pun intended, a collision of these two dynamics, where we have illegal behavior now coinciding with society.
Fong wrote Assembly Bill 3 last year, bringing penalties for stunts like revving engines and burning out tires. But he says California needs to make more investments to keep our streets safe, to the tune of $5 to $10 million added to the state's budget.
Our state has a significant surplus, and so we have to give our law enforcement the technical tools to go after those individuals and see how these operations and activities are being planned, but also just the resources to put patrols on the street.
Fong hopes ramping up law enforcement will help prevent street racing crashes like the one that killed Bianca Flores.
It happened at 6 o'clock at night. At a time when all of us could have been on the roadways. But there has to be consequences to people's irresponsible behavior. It's costing people their lives.
Iqbal Singh was still in the hospital as of last check. When he's released, he'll be booked into the Kern County Jail on suspicion of murder. If you know anything about the motorcyclist in Tuesday's deadly crash, you're urged to call Bakersfield Police at 327-7111. And if you'd like to donate to the GoFundMe for Bianca Flores' family, you can find a link on our website, kget.com. Flores' family has planned a vigil for her. It's taking place February 15th at Challenger Park on the corner of Akers and Harris. It will run from 4 to 6:30. Family members say they hope people from our community will come out and show their support to understand and drive home the importance of driving safely.
When you get behind the wheel, you take the responsibility. The life of everybody that's outside your vehicle as well as inside your vehicle those responsibilities have consequences, and they should not be taken lightly.
Our time now is 5:07, and one of the 4 suspects charged in connection to the hit and run that killed 16-year-old Angel Berumen is scheduled to be in court today, which coincidentally would have been Angel's 17th birthday. The crash left Berumen, who was on his skateboard when he was hit last month, brain dead before he eventually passed away. On Thursday, CHP executed a search warrant at a home in East Bakersfield where pieces of evidence were found. That led to a red Chevrolet truck located at another home in Southwest Bakersfield. It was at the East Bakersfield home where 48-year-old Juan Rodelas Ortega of Bakersfield was later arrested, suspected of being the driver.
We're able to come to a conclusion as of right now and arrest the 4 individuals.
3 others were also arrested and face charges of conspiracy, concealment, and destruction of evidence, and aiding and abetting. CHP says Ortega was behind the wheel, and the other 3 helped him conceal the vehicle after the crash. Ortega faces felony charges and felony hit-and-run charges, conspiracy, concealment, and destruction of evidence, and aiding and abetting. And a memorial fundraiser for the family of Angel Berumen continues today. Fresco Mexican Grill says it is donating its percentage of its sales from yesterday and again today. If you mention Angel's fundraiser, that money will go to the Berumen family to help cover funeral expenses. This fundraiser is only happening at the Fresco Mexican Grill located on Niles Street. 17 News is your local election headquarters. Republicans and Democrats often are starkly divided when it comes to the nation's largest issues and political figures. We wondered, does that spill over into local races?
17's Maddie Gannon joins us in studio this morning with more. Maddie, good morning.
Maddie, good morning. We looked at how big a role party affiliation plays in nonpartisan elections and what it will mean for Kern's upcoming Board of Supervisors 3rd District race. It's often the case that when voters take to the polls, the most enticing thing a candidate has is simply a D or R next to their name. But how big a role does party affiliation play in nonpartisan races like that for Kern's Board of Supervisors? According to both Republican analyst Kathy Abernathy and Democratic analyst Neil Sinapa, a lot.
And each party will probably mail to them or promote the candidate of their party that they support. They'll know which party the candidates are.
Usually what happens is the parties are really trying to make it known to their party members that this is the person we've endorsed, this is the person we want you to vote for.
As the board stands now, 3 of 5 supervisor districts have more registered Republicans. Democrat Leticia Perez represents one of the 2 mostly Democratic areas. The other is represented by Republican David Couch.
What that shows is that we need to get more folks out into the community, out knocking doors, out talking to voters, getting them out to vote in the polls.
Sinapa says if Democrats mobilize in 2024, they can put a Democrat in Couch's District 4 seat. But looking at the election closer ahead, party affiliation already seems to be a big factor in Kern's race for District 3.
To defend public safety, protect the taxpayers.
Dangerous state laws that release prisoners
2
early.
candidates, Jeff Flores and Brian Smith, each has taken stances that align with the Republican Party.
Who look at serving this district.
The other candidate on the ticket, Lewis Gill, is a well-known Democrat.
I think that he can do well, but in this district, it is going to be an uphill battle.
As Sinapa points out, on paper, it may be a tough race for Gill in a district where Republicans out-register Democrats by about 4,700 voters. Abernathy says Gill's initial bid to unseat Kevin McCarthy as a blue choice in a deep red district will only make it tougher.
So I think a lot of people are going to say, what were you really after? Were you wanting to be county supervisor? Were you trying to raise a lot of money under another gimmick?
We should note that of Kern's 3 Republican majority supervisor districts, the 3rd district has the least registered Republicans. In studio, Maddie Gannon, 17 News.
All right, thanks, Maddie. 5:36 now. Education news this morning. California parents could soon have more control over their children's education. Orange County Assemblywoman Lori Davies has introduced the California Parents Bill of Rights Act. It aims to improve transparency into the material schools are teaching. The bill would eliminate red tape for parents trying to transfer their kids to a different school, which may teach curriculum they prefer. Parents would also be allowed to observe their child's classroom and have opportunities to participate in their education. More discussion on the bill is expected to take place today.
A state bill meant to give kids a little extra time in the morning may have unintended consequences for schools here in Kern County. 17's Chris Burton joins us live this morning with the latest on efforts to plan for the new legislation. Chris, good morning.
Alex, good morning. What we're looking at here is State Bill 328. It adjusts the earliest possible start times for California schools. For middle schools, that goes to 8 a.m., and for high schools, it goes to 8:30. Now, this legislation, it was passed back in 2019, but it's set to go into effect this summer. It was intended to combat sleep deprivation among school-age kids, but educators here in Kern have concerns about the effects it could have on the school system. Bakersfield High School's Jeremy Adams says the Kern High School District, which must stagger start times because of the availability of school buses, could see some extremely adjusted schedules.
It's now going to force other high schools, half of the high schools, to being a start time of 9:20. You're not ending your day until about 4:20 or 4:30.
KHSD Associate Superintendent Michael Zulfa is set to deliver a report on the bill at the district's board meeting tonight. Adams expects the report to look at teacher and administrator workloads, as well as the challenges parents face getting their kids to school. Again, this bill has been passed, but it hasn't yet been implemented. Adams says that while he's seen support for delaying the start time of the bill, he hasn't seen any coordinated effort by folks across the state to get something like that going. Live from downtown school, Bakersfield, Chris Burton, 17 News.
Thanks, Chris. Now to the latest on the coronavirus pandemic. The CDC is out with new booster guidelines for the most vulnerable Americans. The CDC says people who are considered to be immunocompromised should get a fourth shot at least 3 months after getting their previous booster. Previous guidelines recommended waiting at least 5 months. The CDC says vaccines are your best defense from getting seriously ill from COVID-19. About half of those eligible for a booster has yet to get one. As fast as it went up, coronavirus cases are plummeting in Kern County, although our hospitals are still under immense pressure from the surge, and we're learning about the deadly reality of Omicron. We learned of 22 new deaths this past week, although we only know of a dozen people who died last month from the virus. Meantime, like we mentioned, our hospitals are still overwhelmed. An average of 286 people were in the hospital with the virus last week. 50 more were in the ICU. Last week, we saw an average of about 1,200 people getting sick with the virus each day. That's down 1,000 daily cases from 3 weeks ago. Health officials say getting vaccinated is the best way to protect yourself, and the data proves that to be emphatically true. 80% of people testing positive for the virus and 90% of people in the hospital with more severe symptoms are unvaccinated.
After 28 years, St. Philip's Preschool in Southwest Bakersfield is closing its doors this week. In a letter sent to parents, Reverend Hector Lopez says there were many factors that contributed to the decision to close the school, including rising operating costs, the effects of the pandemic, insufficient personnel concerns from parents regarding the operation of the school, and a recent state inspection. St. Philip's Preschool is set to close on Thursday.
Local schools aren't the only ones feeling the impact of staffing shortages. Golden Empire Transit has now moved to a reduced service schedule due to COVID-19. The change took place this weekend. Officials say they'll continue to provide essential services to the community, and they're taking extraordinary precautions to protect the health and safety of riders and employees while working tirelessly to maintain an essential service. For more information on the reduced service schedule, visit kget.com.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.